Christina Robinson, welcome to Inspired By.
19, I'd got this baby and I was in this relationship that I thought was going to last forever. It didn't. I was then homeless with a 3-year-old. And it's like tampons or fresh chicken that's on the reduce counter and having to make those kinds of decisions.
How did you overcome that thought in your mind going, I need to contact someone, but they're going to think I'm this?
I've decided that other people are unavailable for me. And then when it's come out afterwards, it's like, well, you should have asked. Do you want to buy my business? Yes. What happened was I got to a point in time where I realised, why shouldn't I have the reward? This business gave me a quality of life that I loved.
Christina Robinson, welcome to Inspired By.
Welcome. It's so exciting to be here.
I can't believe you're finally here. I'm like, I know we talk, for camera and anyone listening, we talk a lot. We have lots of catch-ups. So it's quite funny we're sat here, I'm going, right, what conversation do we want to have here?
Well, I feel like we've kind of already had about 3 conversations in about 3.5 minutes, just getting ready to turn everything on.
Exactly, absolutely. So obviously, for those people that don't know you too well, Christina, you are a very bubbly and enthusiastic character, very charismatic, go in a room and you can just chat to anyone, as can I, hence our conversations. But were you always that bubbly character that we know and we can see today?
No. I think I'm fearless today, pretty much. So I offend people everywhere I go and take them along with me if they want to come. However, there was a time where I was so conscious of what if I stand out. Like I wanted people to notice me, but I didn't want to stand out. I wanted to, I'd got a need for significance, but being insignificant was much safer. So yeah, for a long time, I'd be the quiet one in the background, hoping to be noticed. And I don't really know when or how that changed. It kind of changed over time. And then there's just been a few things in life, whether it's something that's happened or something that's been said to me that's just made me totally embrace it and just go, do you know what? There's not actually that many people over the years that haven't liked me, so I can't be that bad.
I love it though, because there's always that balance of like, I want to be liked because that makes me feel good, and put business to one side. Actually, it makes me feel good, but also I don't want to be liked as something I'm not. How did you navigate that on this journey?
Oh, come on, Chloë. All the conversations we've had, you never asked me things this difficult before. Okay, so how do I navigate it? I think I suddenly became really aware of what I wanted to be known for. Okay, so growing up, I was in quite a traditional family. Traditional families have their idiosyncrasies and their little challenges, but it was very much children should be seen and not heard. And, that's the way that I saw it and definitely how I felt. And so that was kind of my learnt behaviour was to be quiet. And I think that just continued into adult life. And I suddenly find myself in the world of social media, running a marketing agency and standing on stages and public speaking and all that kind of stuff. And you have to remember, the first time I ever spoke in public, I had no intention. I did not want to do it. I was not interested. But the person that was my boss at the time had double booked herself. And she's like, well, you know the content. It's only like 20, 25 people. It's only a few hours. Just go do it. You'll be fine. So I did. And then it just kind of started something. So to begin with, I always felt like I was in costume, wearing a mask, because I was trying to present like her. And so there was always this kind of what I understand now as a misalignment. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to make this work, if I'm going to make it land, I need to be more me. Well, who am I? What does me look like, feel like, sound like? And that's developed over 10 years to, the person you met.
Yeah. And I'm absolutely loving getting to know her every single day or each catch up, I'm just like, there's this new side of you that I've never seen. And I think that's one of the things I love about these conversations, because you can feel like you know someone so well, and then you suddenly ask one question and it just like, the stories come out and you're like, why have you never told me this before? Now, it's funny that you mentioned, because like that is exactly that question. You'd never told me that story before. I did not know that that's how.
Did you not?
No, I did not know. And I trained you, public speaking. Like we worked together with it. So
I mean, this is crazy because we met 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, and like I said, I've been standing in front of people speaking in a professional capacity for the best part of 10 years. Well, no, it is 10 years now, and I never had any training until a couple of years ago. Any formal training.
Yeah.
Just went and saw other people speak and went, oh shit, they're better than me. Why are they better than me? And look at them, I'm so much better than they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting, this kind of public speaking world, when you really get into it and you know, when you understand how it works, how it should work, how you should use a stage. And again, I feel that when I started to study it more, well, that person's doing it this way, that person tells their story that way. Now I've had training and this is the format and this is what you should be doing. And so I would try and mold myself that way, and it just never felt congruent. You described me as bubbly, and, you know, I am a bubbly, energetic speaker. I do all the things you shouldn't do, but that's what makes me unique as a speaker. And again, the more I've embraced that, the more success I've had.
Yeah, so true. And you're right, though, because if you're then trying to be somebody else, I always think the cracks get deeper and stronger, and you feel more like you don't know who you are anymore, you know? And I know for you, obviously, you notice that quite early on. And some people would be maybe listening to this or watching this that don't have someone they are trying to copy or be like consciously. Unconsciously, they might be thinking, I need to put this mask on because I need to be a certain way. I have to do it this way. I need to be like this. How did you overcome that need to have the mask on or be a certain way to then actually just be, here I am, this is who I am, take it or leave it, which is very much your energy now?
Feedback, to be honest, taking on the feedback. So the feedback as in someone says, you know, taking notes from someone, but also the feedback of what's actually happening in that room. Who is engaged, who is laughing at the right times, who's falling asleep on the back row. You know, it's that part of it. It's the, you know, when you're looking out at that audience, you see the people that look really into it and you see the people that look really disengaged. And if you focus on those disengaged people, it just makes you crumble. Well, if you've got playing in your head at the same time, well, I must be on the left hand of the stick. I went left. I said left and went right then. Did you notice that? But, you know, all this sort of, you're just going to be shit. You're just going to be shit. So I kind of took that as feedback for myself. But then also some of those people that looked really disengaged were the ones coming up to me afterwards saying, this point really landed. They were the ones tagging me in social media posts saying that, you know, I saw these speakers and this was the standout thing from that 2-day event. And so when you listen to the feedback that way and you go, actually, do you know what? When I delivered that bit, I was doing all the things I'm not supposed to do. But all the things I'm not supposed to do are all the things that are 100% me. And so listened to the feedback and kind of went with it. And when I got the feedback that was, your passion didn't seem there, it was because I was following a framework. I was using body language that was someone else's body language, not mine.
Yeah.
And so I mean, the quick answer to your question is I just went, fuck it. I just went, no, I'm doing it my way. I love it. I enjoy it. I think I'm pretty good at it. So I'm just going to be me. One of the things I say all the time, I say it quite often when I'm talking around social media, and, you know, the biggest issue people have is that they don't show up and they don't back themselves. So literally that's what I did. I made the decision. I was show up, back you all day long. And to be honest, it's like just the more I've committed to that, the more opportunities have come.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Now, Christina, you mentioned there about the fact that you were, as a child, told be seen and not heard. I can really relate to that. Like I was always told that, and ironically now I run a show and I speak and I get paid to speak. Like it's the most ironic thing ever. Where did that shift happen where you were being told to be seen and not heard, and now you run a podcast that's literally called Christina Talks? So what happened in your life that made that shift for you go, do you know what, actually I am going to talk?
Okay, so just to clarify something, I don't think it was I was told, be seen and not heard. I felt it. Didn't want to get caught out in anything. There are a lot of difficulties in the household when I was growing up, and there were, there's some instabilities, let's say. And I think quite often when you're in a family like that, the kids you become quiet, you become a bit more insular because you don't want to get caught up in what's happening in the household. You go into school and you hear about everyone's normal lives and realize your life's not normal, but you don't know that it's not normal, you just know that it's different. But because it is your normal, it's not something you talk about. And then all of a sudden you're in your teens and you become aware that actually this shit ain't normal. And then loyalties kick in. So you stay quiet anyway, because you don't want everyone, like, people can't know that. And so it's like we're almost keeping secrets. And when you keep secrets, you stay quiet. And I just continued to be that way. And again, for lots of different reasons, I left home at 16. Home life it was tricky, and I was a really good teenager because, I never did any of the naughty stuff. People think I did because I'm so mischievous
now. God, I totally would believe that.
No, I was a freaking good girl, me. And I remember my I've never told you this, I don't think. So my first and only kiss in my teens, I think I was like maybe 20 minutes late home. Okay, now I would have been on time, but I got my first snog. And when I got into the house, my mother thought I'd been doing drugs.
Oh my God. One extreme to the other.
I know.
No, I just kissed a boy.
Yeah, I was like, I haven't. So it's like, I was really sheltered and really quiet and really well behaved. And then, like I said, when I was 16, 2 days before Christmas, I there was a row. You're going to be under my roof. I was like, fine, I'll go then. And I went, and that was that. And I ended up doing jobs where I'm like, working in Tesco's and waitressing, and got a job as a trainee chef. And I was doing all three of those things at the same time to keep a roof over my head because my work ethic was quite high. But these types of jobs, it fitted this belief that I wasn't good for anything more than being in the kitchen, waitressing, working on a checkout. So it's the beliefs you have in yourself because of the things you learn at such a young age. And that belief carried through for a long, long time. And I'd find myself in situations where I'd be doing really well. I was doing really, with the trainee chef stuff, I was doing really well. I won awards with the company I was working in and all this sort of stuff. Then I got pregnant. And so I had my my first daughter, my eldest, Emma, at 19. And went back to waitressing. So I kind of just like left that career, that opportunity behind. So I kind of reached this ceiling where actually I coulda, woulda, shoulda. I went, nah. Went back to this. This is the best I can. I can be a mother and a waitress because average. Just below average is about as good as I can be. And within a short period of time working there, I was like deputy manager of this little quaint village coaching hotel kind of thing. And had a breakdown at 22, 23. So, leaving home at 16.
Now, I just wanted to quickly interrupt this episode to share a quick message with you. Now, I've been hosting these interviews with Inspired by Show for a while now, and I've been loving all of the great feedback from our listeners. And it really means a lot when you all share from listening to these episodes, watching these episodes, share your incredible feedback. And I love that you love it as much as we do. Now, my mission for the Inspired by Show is to inspire others to challenge the norm, share their story, knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable and, shock horror, take the mask off and be raw and real. So I have a favour to ask. Can you help me on this mission by sharing this episode with someone who you think needs to hear this message? Maybe there's a friend, a loved one, a colleague, or someone that you know that would really benefit from hearing this inspiring story. If you could do that to help us, help even more people to challenge the norm and push themselves out of their own comfort zone, then I'd really appreciate it. So if you haven't already, share this episode with a friend, a loved one, a colleague, or someone that you know would benefit. Now, back to the episode.
Working 3 jobs, keeping a roof over your head. Of course, I dropped out of education, which also fed this belief of less than average is the best. You're a school dropout now too. So after the breakdown, I decided, okay, well, normal people go to university, so I'm going to go and do a course and do that. Did like an access course, but dropped out of that because I'd not really recovered from the breakdown. Skip to the next bit, and I'm now, so that's it. I'm never going back to anything to do with waitressing again, hotels, no. And of course, then get a job through a recruitment agency, waitressing in a hotel. Way! And honestly, I went in. I did this like breakfast shift. I was there for about an hour and a half. And I looked around the place and went, there's absolutely zero point me being here. You're paying agency rates to have me here. Like, this is what I'm, do you want me to just go home? They're like, yes, thank you for being so understanding. And I got called in the next day and 4 job descriptions put in front of me. And it was like, which job would you like? And I became the conference operations manager for that 4-star hotel, like literally overnight. Yeah, and again was on quite a successful track there when, 2009, all that kind of stuff happens. I'm made redundant. So I've finally broken this kind of ceiling of, actually, maybe I could be more than, below average. And then rather than me blowing it up, the carpet got pulled out from underneath me. So I was like, okay, I was wrong then. So let's go back to there.
Just like fed that belief again and again. Interesting.
Absolutely. And I feel like I'm being one of those people that tells their stories and it's like, oh my God, is she done yet? Well, I'm not.
There's more.
I mean, so redundancy, like all that kind of thing. There's a whole other mess that happens after that that's not relevant to this. I decide again, I'm like, how many, what have I got wrong in the past? What can I do again to expect a different result? I know, I'll go back to university. So I started a degree in event management because I thought that'd be easy because I know what I'm doing. And second year in, I injured my spine, which you know about my spinal injury, and ended up dropping out of uni. So I'm there now thinking like, what am I going to do? And I hated uni as a mature student, absolutely hated it. The only thing I enjoyed was this kind of like 6 weeks we spent talking about social media as a marketing tool. So I know, what if I went and did some social media for some businesses and helped them get clients? So I started researching, what would it take for me to sort of set up and do that on my own and all this kind of thing. And like literally within a few days, I stumbled across a social media marketing agency that was located no more than 5 minutes from my front door. So I'm like, followed their Facebook page and, followed them on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. Instagram wasn't a thing then. And within a couple of days, they advertised for a freelance social media manager role. I applied. Following week, I started there.
Wow. And I'm going to pause there because I know where that bit goes.
You know what happens next.
Yeah, I do. And I just want to jump back to something you shared earlier because I find it fascinating, Christina, because obviously I've heard your story in many different facets the whole time we've worked together and supported each other through a hell of a lot, trust me, both sides. And I always find it fascinating because for me, there's always an undertone in that story, which is, or a theme of the story, which is just keep moving forward. You know, it's like never just take no, because even though, yes, you were saying it on one side, the belief kept being reaffirmed and, you know, you were reminded that I'm not good enough for that, or I'll never be more than that. But you didn't take no for an answer because you kept looking and searching. What happened there for you to want to look for more?
I think there was probably just something in my subconscious that knew. And I know that's a really crap answer because, like, what can anyone do with that? My biggest fear, my biggest fear is paralysis. And at about 6 years old, I had my ears pinned back. So at that point, it was I think it's like every day now, okay? But at that point, I think it was quite a big surgery. And I remember waking up in this hospital bed because I had really flappy ears. I'll show you a photo later. Real big ears. And I remember waking up, this big bandage on my head. And obviously, I've just come around from general anaesthetic. And I remember this feeling, not being able to lift my head. And it's like I couldn't quite open my eyes because I'm coming round. And I will never forget that feeling of not being able to move. So whether it is something around that experience that was just, even when you feel like you can't move, just keep trying, it will come. Whether that was implanted in my subconscious at the age of 6, whether there's something before that I don't even remember. Like I said, when I had my spinal injury, there were times where I'd get myself to the side of the bed in the morning and my brain would tell my body to stand up and there would be no motion, or, you know, stuck on the toilet seat. That's always a good one. Anyone that's had back issues will understand what I'm talking about there. You know, it's so this kind of paralysis thing. If I'm stuck somewhere feeling like I'm going nowhere, that is the worst place for me to be. And I feel that it plays out everywhere. People are like, oh, Christina, you take on so much. Do you think you've taken on too much? Be careful, you'll burn out. I'm like, mate, I did that before. I know what that looks like. Yeah. And I don't know where I'm going necessarily, but I know what's coming next and I know what needs to happen to get there. And if I don't take action, I'm putting myself in a state of paralysis.
Wow. And do you know what? The ironic part of that whole thing was that when you were sharing, you obviously didn't want to be, it was 6 years old, that feeling you had. And then you were avoiding paralysis by kept moving. And then you had a spinal injury, which literally physically manifested itself. Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
I find it really interesting, Christina, when you tell those stories, because you've obviously been through lots. And I find there is an element of, I always believe that we learn from our own situations, but we learn in a good way or not so good way. In other words, I want to be exactly like my parents. I want to be nothing like my parents, right? Or I want to be exactly like my boss was when I worked for them, or I want to be absolutely nothing like my boss was. How did you find it? Remind me again, 19 when you had Emma? Was it 19?
Yeah, 19. Yeah.
So how did you find that moment, bearing in mind you've expressed your own situations in your childhood, suddenly being 19 with a baby? Was there any part of you that was a bit nervous of going, I don't want to be like that, or I do want to do this? Any of those sort of feelings coming up?
Okay, so how do I want to answer this? There's lots of different ways for me to answer this. So my parents they are not people that show love in a way that manifests. Their love is shown in hardship, let's say. Okay. So it's they're not people you're gonna sit on the sofa with and have a cuddle, and you know, they're not like hugs and kisses on a regular basis. Emma's grandparents on her father's side were 100% the loving hugs and kisses. Emma's grandfather passed away December last year, And sometimes we have those people that come into our lives that are, we all think, even the people that love their parents the most, there's always this like one thing that they wish they were more of, or they wish they had. And Tony, Emma's grandfather, was just such a lovely, lovely man, and funny and cheeky and inappropriate a lot as well, in a fun way, and in a really nice way. And okay, so I'm thinking like every Christmas morning, it's like we'd be there, and he's like waiting for it, and he'd be like puckered up, like just stood there, puckered up, waiting for the kiss on the lips, and it's so what I'm trying to say. So thank you, by the way. That's such a lovely memory to have in this moment. I'm surprised I'm not crying. But yeah, he was a beautiful, beautiful man. My point is that when I had Emma at 19 years of age, when I fell pregnant, I was working with someone who I was really good friends with, who was trying really hard for a baby and had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And the guilt I felt that I was unexpectedly pregnant when there was someone I knew that wanted this so much. I felt the weight of that. And going through the pregnancy, she was really supportive, and I think I learned a lot from her. And with my parents, I had this kind of hard truths input, and with Tony and Denise, Emma's other grandparents, I had this real love input as well. So I'm 19, I've got this baby, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know. Oh, I swear a lot, by the way, guys. I feel a little bit lost in the world, and my priorities were all wrong. All wrong. I didn't have to think, because I had people that they were there ready.
Wow. I love that balance, though. It's like yin and yang, right? It's like you can't, I'm not saying you can't have all of one and not the other, but it's almost like a beautiful recipe when you have a bit of both, because it's not like you were going to do a bad job with Emma if you only went the hardship route, in the same way you would never have done a bad job if you went down the love route. But almost like having a bit of both made a really nice balance.
And like I said, I think maybe there was a little bit of this idea that less than average, maybe that almost served me in that moment, because for me to say I don't know what I'm doing was the right thing to do. And to allow people to show me the way, because, well, Christina doesn't know what she's doing. It kind of allowed me to be coachable. So yeah, it's we've never talked about this stuff.
I know, this is why I love the show. It's so, I just love the fact that I can have these conversations with you, because I just think this stuff needs to be heard, because I think there are so many mums out there that have had fantastic childhoods and want to create exactly the same thing and don't for their own kids. There are also parents that have had the most horrific childhoods and want to avoid that. So I think that it's really nice to hear. I mean, I'm not a mum yet, but there is part of me where I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to be like my mum or my dad. And what if I'm like that? Will I do this? Because I think, to come back to my point, we're both much in the personal development space. So we've done a hell of a lot of work. Like we've shared our therapy stories. Let's be real, right? Yeah. Over many non-alcoholic glasses of wine. But we have really revealed it all. And I think sometimes I'm fearful that when you've done the work, you know the shit that you have been through, and you know the shit that was put on you. And I'm not saying like I love my parents. Neither of them intentionally screw me up. But every parent screws their kids up. That's part of life, right? It's part of our own growth. Was there ever part of you that you're a bit worried about, like, there's this baby that's relying on me and I don't want to screw it up?
No, but because I was probably quite emotionally disconnected, if I'm really honest, because of not growing up in a highly emotional family. I didn't know how to activate that part of my body. And like I said, although I got this example I could see in my in-laws, I got pregnant very quick into that relationship. So I'd only seen it for a small window of time. And so, yeah, I didn't look at, they tell the story, you look at your baby and like you have this flood of emotion and it's all amazing. And I kind of looked at this baby and was like, I think the epidural's just kicked in. It feels a bit weird down there. It's a yeah, it's a really weird thing. I I wouldn't have said I had any like postnatal depression or anything like that, but I don't think that I don't believe I connected in the same way I did with my second child. And I also think a big part of that is, there's almost 6 years between them. Being that little bit older, let's face it, 19 is not, people have kids younger, but it's still, it's young to be having babies. And at that age, even 6 years later, and I was not in the world of personal development and that kind of stuff then, I just understood that the things worth having take work. Things like feeding, like breastfeeding. With Emma, I did it with both of them, but with Emma, I gave it way too easy. It's the whole experience of Emma as a baby. I looked externally more than trusting my intuition. With Isabella, I was way more into like, no, whatever I say goes.
I love that. So you mentioned that's partly the age difference, and within yourself, I mean, not within them. What was there anything else that shifted in your life at those points that you would say was a defining factor?
I don't think there's any one thing. There's not anything specific that sort of springs to mind. Like I said, at 19, I'd got this baby and I was in this relationship that I thought was going to last forever. It didn't. I've had a breakdown. Okay, so when I had the breakdown, Emma was about 3. And where I was living in this quaint chocolate box village in Oxfordshire, I was living in the hotel. I'd got sort of the manager's flat was where I lived. So when I called my boss something I won't say now for you, and like that all blew up, I was then homeless with a 3-year-old. And people that know me, like, I just take everything in my stride. Like honestly, there is so much personal stuff that I know that it's like it's you. I would be that boring person if I shared it all. It's like, oh my God, she's got a story for everything. But all these things happened, and so I just had to keep moving through to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. I remember standing in the co-op, and it's like I've got like 73p in my hand or something, change, and it's like tampons or fresh chicken that's on the reduced counter, and having to make those kinds of decisions. And so it was to be in that kind of now when I say I was homeless, we're very fortunate here, okay, as a lone mother with a toddler, Oxfordshire's rural location, that kind of thing. I'm sure if I found myself in the same situation in inner city London, I'd have been on the streets. I was, in sort of emergency accommodation. We were in this horrible little bed sit, but I was in a bed sit. I was there for a few months. We got moved. So it's please don't think that it was, that some people had it much worse than me. And I think this is the thing. There's so many things that I experienced over those 6 years where I just went, life's shit, But I also know there's other people that have got it much worse than me.
But that's one thing I love about you, Christina, is that you're always so human. And I don't know how to describe that, but no matter what incredible achievement you have in your life, because I've seen you on like some pretty big stages and pretty heavy hitters, and I've heard your incredible results, but you're still just so human. Like you're just like, yeah, but they've done better or they've got it worse. You know, you're just very humble in your accolades. Now, I know for a fact when you started your entrepreneurial journey, you wouldn't have called it consciously starting an entrepreneurial journey. Like your route into entrepreneurship was probably quite unique in the same way I think a lot of your stories, your life experience has been quite unique. So flash us back now to that moment where you joined this marketing company as an employee, let's be clear. And what happened next?
Okay, so I started as a freelancer, just doing a couple of hours a day at home. So it was that, and within about 4 weeks, it was like, oh, could you do Actually, we'd like to employ you, just like 12 hours a week, part time. 6 months in, I'm full time and essentially second in command in the business. And this is my first job in the marketing world. What's going on? I'm always trying to figure out the timeline because, sometimes you have conversations, you don't realise at the time how much they're going to be part of your story. So, your sensible people have a break from the desk. So myself and the business owner are having a walk around the building, and she says to me, we talk about exit strategies because she'd had a business previously that she'd sold, and we were talking about her experience of selling that business. And she started to talk about what would happen if she ever wanted to exit Green Umbrella, and that she would want to do a management buyout, and was that something I'd be interested in? And I'm walking along and I went, yeah. And in my head, I went, what the fuck is wrong with you? I thought you were a normal person. You're supposed to be inspirational and clever and smart, and you think I can do this? Like, what is going on? I'm like, yeah.
It was one of those say yes and work out what the hell I've just done later.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it was a casual conversation. It was one of those conversations where you think is never going to go anywhere anyway. It's ridiculous. Like, whatever. And probably over the next couple of years, couple of years, that one question developed into actually quite a serious conversation. And then it became a bit of a plan. And the plan was for it to happen in 2020. And in about October 2018, I said, if we're going to do this, we need to do it now.
And just to be clear, management buyout is where an employee buys out the owner.
Yeah.
And so this is what you'd committed to doing.
Yeah. So literally in the October 2018, I said, like, seriously, if we're going to do this, let's do it. And between then, basically October 2018, 1st of April 2019, I bought the business, and the previous owner, like, literally signed the paper, went to the office, picked up her stuff, and left the business.
Wow.
We'd already done the crossover. There was no earn-out. It's like literally, see you later. And
That's
it's
incredible.
weird because we'd worked so closely together. We had a really good working relationship, and after the sale, after the MBO, I think we had coffee maybe once, and then I've never and not even seen her since.
Question for you, Christina. So that thought process in your head when she first mentioned it, where you're like, I'll say yes, but inside I'm like panicking. What the hell have I done? Why, you're mad? You think I'm worthy of this? What shifted to you then actually going, this needs to happen now? Like, what was going through your head in those moments?
Okay, so to be clear, when someone, so you talk about babies a minute ago, right? When you see someone's baby, you go, oh, how beautiful. You don't go, what an ugly fucker. So there was no thought behind that response. Do you want to buy my business? Yes. Would you want to buy my business? No way. You can keep that. There wasn't any. It's an automatic response. Hey, how are you? I'm good, thanks. You don't think about it. You just respond. There is only one response, right? So, like I said, there was nothing in my head. My whole thought process was, you're mad. I could never do that. what happened was I got to a point in time where I realised, well, I am doing it. So why shouldn't I have the rewards? And this business gave me a quality of life that I loved. It allowed me to do things that I loved. And this is probably the wrong thing to, like, God forbid any of my clients actually hear me say this, but I bought my lifestyle. I got a business too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a slightly different thing.
Yeah. But I totally agree, because it can't be a business without meeting your lifestyle, right? Because then it's just a very stressful job that's stretching you too much and then ending up in another batch of burnout, which we've all felt. So I actually think it's really inspirational that you went, actually, this gives me the lifestyle that I want and the passion that you want. And even when you talk about it, even now, years and years after that you've been part of Green Umbrella, let alone before you even owned it, you're still just as passionate every time you talk about it.
I mean, I love it. I just love it. It's been such a part of my story. It's really interesting, actually, some of the questions that you've asked me, because maybe this will help answer those better. I'd become so much part of this business that, because all of a sudden I was so much more than average. I knew stuff that other people didn't understand. Not just clients and prospects, but friends and family. All of a sudden, I could serve these people and make the biggest differences to them. I could take that business from the point of failure to 7 figures. So all was like this, less than average. It was like, no, that's not a thing anymore. I can believe it if I want to, but the evidence is here. And so my identity then became so wrapped up in the business. It's like all my plans were it wasn't Christina's plans, it was Green Umbrella plans. And it's interesting because it's probably only the last 2 years, if I'm honest, where I've kind of gone, actually, that's not a badge of honour. So, okay, I know what Green Umbrella is. I know what it is. I know as a beast, I know what it looks like and feels like and smells like and tastes like. But what were all the answers to that in terms of Christina? And I feel that, yeah, a lot of the questions you've asked have actually just come into fruition in the last 2 years. Yes, probably the last 6 months, to be honest. And I've kind of really found a place now where I am. So I feel like I inspire now. And it's like a frigging big-headed thing to say. It's like, I was an employee, I had the opportunity, I bought business, I've done all right since. To me, is not an inspiring story. Had a shitty upbringing, got out of it, had a few hurdles along the way, did this, did that, brilliant, great. There's for every story I can tell, there's another 100 million out there. But what I'm doing now, I feel that when you look at someone and you think, wow, I want to, that's inspiring, I want a bit of that. You can't really put a label on it. You don't know what it is. You don't know what's that thing that they're just emanating that you want to bottle and have for yourself. And I just feel like I've got it in spades now. And I can't even tell you what it is.
That was going to be my next question. I was just about to say, what do you think you are emanating now that makes the difference between inspiring others and previously your accolades not being as inspirational?
I feel very connected to myself. I feel I've got some freaking awesome humans around me. I've got my people, we talk about finding your tribe. And I've really got that. I've got people that love me unconditionally. And I'm not talking about romantic partners or anything like that. I'm just talking about people. And the family you choose. But it's they hold up a mirror and they show me who I am. So it's not dependent on them. And so it is really, really special when you live in a world where you go, okay, I recognize that in this moment I'm not in a good place. Okay, well, I can dial into this thought, this feeling, this choice of way of being. And if I can't do that myself, if I can't coach myself through that moment, then okay, I'm going to ring this person. I'm going to, I had something last week, and it's which we won't talk about now, but it was grueling, and that morning I messaged this individual and I said I need you today, and that was it, and they were there for me.
Wow.
And it's when you have the power to be that for someone else, but be vulnerable enough to say, I'm not a powerhouse today and I don't want to be.
Yeah, and I don't have to be. I think that's the key, isn't it? Because Christina, you are a powerhouse. You are such an inspirational person, not just from a place of vulnerability, but from a place of strength. Every time I speak to you, the way you hold yourself, the way you stand on stages, like people look at you and think, "Fuck, she is terrifyingly, terrifyingly enthusiastic," but also can be quite intimidating, right? But I think the beautiful thing about what you've just shared there is that I think yes, it's people being around you that are available for you. But I'd also say it's the ability to say, it's not my day today and I need help. How did you overcome that thought in your mind going, I need to contact someone, but they're going to think I'm this, or I'm not this powerhouse? How did you overcome that so that you could actually reach out and say, I need help?
Not sure I have. That was just a really, really, really shit day. If I'm really honest. The thought I had is let's be honest. I mentioned Tony earlier. The day he passed away, I really needed some help that day. And I really needed the help of one person in particular. And I couldn't ask the question. I could have. I felt like I couldn't. And in this situation, I was like, if I don't ask the question, I'm not serving myself, and I'm not giving them the opportunity to serve me either. And it's a really hard lesson. It's a lesson we all need to learn, and there are times where it's much easier than others. When this is being edited, you'll see an edit, you'll see like version 2, and there'll be something in it, and you'll be going, oh, I want this bitch. She won't. I'm sure it'll be perfect. But like something like that, it's really easy to go, oh, I need your help. I need this to happen. When it's something emotional, when it's something where you are in a place of vulnerability, when you're feeling weak, where you don't know what the world is anymore, it's hard and it's tough, and I don't feel that I think, oh, they'll think I'm weak, or they'll think I'm this, or I'll think I'm that. I think it's more about self-worth. They're really busy. I don't want to take up their time. I know they've got this and this happening. I don't want to disturb that. It's more, I decide that people, in the past, I've decided that other people are unavailable for me. And then when it's come out afterwards, it's like, well, you should have asked. Should have asked for help. Well, what help did I need? I don't know. Well, that's exactly why you should ask sometimes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't learnt that lesson yet. There are days I'm more conscious of it and I act on it. To be honest, I don't think it's a lesson any of us really ever learn. There is there's part of my story I haven't shared it crosses over with some of yours. There have been times in my life where I've not wanted to be here anymore, and there are times in my life where I've gone to act on that. And by the grace of God, or whatever you believe in, I'm still here. And so I feel like every day, every moment, every minute, every second I'm here has to be for something. It has to. And so if I'm going to be here, let's be energetic. Let's have fun. Let's have a bit of naughtiness. Let's give what we want the world to have more of. And so I think it is, and it's not that we're going to be perfect all the freaking time, because we're not. You know, you can't be a 20 out of 10, 24/7. So it's just about maintaining an average, let's say.
I love that. It's such a beautiful share though, Christina, because I think so many of us are always trying to put on a brave face. You know, I talk a lot on this show about the mask that we all put on, and that we can't show face. We can't show that we're struggling. And I think it's amazing that what you've shared about the people that you're around and finding your tribe. And I'm really excited because I know who we're talking about. And I think, you know, we are, everyone around is just so inspiring. So my question for you, Christina, is who would you say on your journey? It could be someone you know, it could be a celebrity, it could be a mentor. Who's inspired you the most on your journey?
I was asked a few weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago, and the question was around legacy. Like, what legacy do you want to leave? And I kind of, in that moment, I thought about it. And there are a few people that have touched my life. And they're not massive, they're not inspiring, but the difference that they made, what they showed me, the lessons I learned from them, is I'm so grateful for. And they're not on this planet anymore. And so I feel that if I am an inspiration, it's because I carry a part of them. So it's Tony I've mentioned, because the fun and the love that he showed, that's an important thing to have as an individual. Diana Pogson's a music teacher, and she, I mean, in my teenage years, like I say, things were not good at home, and you know, I'd be at her house overnight, which sounds weird that your music teacher would have you do that, but you know, it was all a bit different back then. I make myself sound really old. I'm not. I'm really not. But it's the understanding that she showed, the compassion that she showed, the opportunities that she created that I wouldn't have had. The little things she did that gave me that bit of confidence to actually go, no, you are worthy. You are something. Just the little conversations we had that, you know, and so there are people that, sometimes the people that give us the most inspiration are the people that maybe they weren't particularly, you know, massive, inspiring people themselves as individuals. You know, I've got a legacy of 4 people to leave, because I wouldn't be able to leave my own without them. There's also, you know, when we think about who's inspiring in that the more traditional way, I have a mentor who, he's an interesting character. You should have him on here, definitely. He's a bit Marmite. Spencer Lodge is, he's just a wonderful human being. When I first met Spencer, I was at an event and I'd never heard of him even. He spoke and I was like, I really like this guy. And he's off stage and I'm sat at my table carrying on with my emails because, you know, I never stop. And he's like literally like 3 inches in front of my table and he's got his 18-year-old daughter with him. And he's dancing to, you know what these events are like, the music is pumping, the lights are going, and he's there dad dancing, and his 18-year-old daughter Taylor is like telling him off for the dad dancing. It was such a beautiful, beautiful moment to witness. And on the way, I think it was on the way back from that event, I dropped him a message on LinkedIn, dropped him a message on LinkedIn. And because I'd had some challenges going into that event, I almost didn't go. And just witnessing that just gave me, there were a lot of things I needed to feel and see and understand about parents and kids and that kind of thing, and what normal looks like, you know, what this, my idea of the perfect normal would look like. And I got to witness that in a moment. And I dropped him a message and just said, thank you because I got to see that, and that was a gift. And conversation started from there. I ended up working with him being a mentor one-to-one. And I don't think there's another man on this planet that's made me cry so much in my life, who calls me out, who just sees through the bullshit, and in a way that not many people do, who takes no prisoners, who, I mean, this guy, his to say he's successful in business is an understatement. It's I don't even know what the valuation is of his company now. It's a bit, last time I won't throw figures around, but it was, you know, sizable. And he's been a bit of a naughty boy, and he is, and he owns it. But he's good people. I remember, you know, I was working with him as a sales mentor, sales coach, and we would jump on calls, and my life was falling apart, and I was in a mess. And he, at the end of the session, he's like, right, you need to rebook this session. He's like, this was just friends. You know, you can talk to me anytime. And, you know, I still refer to him as my mentor now. It's probably 2 years since I've had any formal mentoring from him. But I literally dropped him a message 2 weeks ago. He, you know, he is always going to be there for me if and when I need him. Wow. And it is I see the things that he's doing. He's recently filmed a documentary to do with the essentially human trafficking, the sex trade. He's put himself in some really unsafe situations to go and interview people across the globe in places where this stuff's going on. Because he's earned his money, he lives a fantastic quality of life, and he has the privilege of having the resources available to be able to expose some of this stuff. So that's what he does. Wow. You know, and it's just, and at the same time, he's a cheeky chappy, and he's 100% him, and you won't find him being any other way. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And let's face it, there's a lot of people out there that are the inspirations, the mentors, that kind of thing, where I'm in a commercial relationship with you, fantastic. You are the icing on the cake. Oh, your money's run out. See you later.
Yeah.
And so this is, it's genuine.
I think that's the shadow side of mentorship though, isn't it? It's like we invest in mentors to guide us, and there is a bond that is formed, but it is based on a commercial relationship. And so I think a lot of people forget that when it comes to mentorship, or they go all in and then suddenly, like you say, bills due again, can't afford it. And it's like you're, you know, cut my ties. And I think that, okay, the money stops coming in. So maybe the value exchange stops, but it doesn't mean the relationship stops. You know, it's, and I think that's sometimes the difficulty we have in the industry that we're both in, which is mentorship.
Yeah. I think this is it's a whole other conversation, isn't it? The more me I am, the more authentic I am. When you asked me earlier, I said, you know, some things happened, some things were said to me that made me to step into who I am. Spencer said to me, if you've got 100 people in front of you, 20 will like you, 20 will hate you, the rest just don't give a shit. And I was like, I'm just going to focus on the 20 that will like me. So if I can build genuine relationships with them, they're going to want to work with me. If they don't want to work with me, when they're having conversations, they're going to refer me. So I win anyway. And so do they. And the 20 people that don't like me, it's never going to happen. And the 80 people that are not paying attention, don't care, whatever, I'll just wait till it's the right time for them. They'll either come on board or they won't.
Yeah. And I guarantee by you focusing on the people that you knew would like you or you assumed would like you, focusing on delivering to them will also increase their experience. And also you probably have way more fun with it. And I love the fact that what you said with Spencer, it sounds like he's a cheeky chappy. I know one of your core values is mischief. So you can definitely see that alignment there. And do you know, Christina, I could talk to you about this all day. Like, I honestly, we need to get another one of these booked in because there is so much more I want to talk about. Now, you've touched on Spencer's story, which is fantastic. And actually, Ellie, who was our very first guest, also suggested Spencer Lodge for the show. So we have two calls out for him. So we just need to make that happen. But I'm curious. You've obviously had such an inspiring story, and I'm so grateful for you sharing it here and also trusting us to share so vulnerably here with stuff that you've said that you haven't said before. Going back down to that girl in your childhood that you said was someone that you felt like you were never going to be more than a certain thing. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to her?
I love you. I thank you. I forgive you.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Really, really, really beautiful. And do you know what? Those three phrases I think we could all say to ourselves then, now, and forever to say that, right? Because the more that we do thank ourselves and care for ourselves and love ourselves, that's been the biggest shift I've had, I'd say, in the last year or so, is just being really grateful for who I am and actually being able to forgive myself for shit, because we all do it.
I mean, there are decisions that I've made that I stand by that I have to let go of. They were the right things to do, but maybe things I don't like that I did, but they were the right things to do. There are things where I fucked up royally, and I know it. But again, we have to have a level of self-love, self-worth, but self-forgiveness.
Yeah. I'd actually argue forgiveness is probably one of the hardest of it all as well, because I'm actually really quick at forgiving other people. Like, a lot of my friends and business partners are like, what the hell are you doing? You've forgiven that person already.
So now I'm like, you're dead to me, mate.
Yeah. And honestly, the amount of times I chat to you and you're like, you've forgiven him or you've forgiven her, or what are they doing? But I forgive myself very rarely, very, very rarely. And it's something that I'm personally working on. I'm like, why am I forgiving them, but I'm not forgiving myself? So I think forgiveness is huge.
I've had something this morning, just something that's cropped up in business where I've just, my eye's gone off the ball on something, and it's really small and it's not that important and it's easy to fix. But because we are who we are, it's like, for God's sake, the world is and the sky is falling. And it's like, actually, if I could show myself a little bit of self-forgiveness, because, yeah, that one thing hasn't happened, but these 146 million other things did. You know, so sometimes it's the small stuff. Sometimes it is the big stuff. Yeah, there's stuff with my kids that oh my goodness, I would handle so different. I had a meeting with one of my team, a team meeting this week, and I said something on the call, and it was absolutely, I could kick myself for saying what I said in the way that I said it, in that environment, because it came out totally, totally wrong. And the first thing I did after that meeting was ring that individual and say, I completely did that wrong. I know what I said. I know what it was the right words communicated in the wrong way. This is the situation. This is why I said these were the drivers. And please understand, I didn't mean it in the way that it came across. I forgive myself because I'm going to get it wrong. I'll probably get it wrong going home, right? I will forgive myself. And it's a, you know, you think about standing in the mirror and saying, I love you. It's a hard thing to do, right? Try standing in the mirror and saying, thank you. Try standing there saying, I forgive you. It's special. It's not nothing.
Oh, it's such a beautiful way to wrap up this interview, Christina. Thank you so much, lovely. I just, honestly, lovely. It's been so great having you here. I know we speak loads, and we've spoken a lot about various different things, especially on the show here. And I'm just so grateful for you sharing so vulnerably with us. Obviously, I know you're doing incredible things with Christina Talks as well. So I'm really excited to tune into more of your episodes as well. And obviously, anyone that's watching 100% would recommend you tune into Christina's show. Thank you so much, lovely. It's been amazing to have you here.
It's an absolute pleasure. Mwah. Love you lots.
Oh, love you lots. So guys, that is the end of this episode today. Hope you guys have got as seriously as much value as I have and gotten lots of takeaways and golden nuggets, because there were so many things that we shared in there, from parenting to forgiveness and so much in between. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you are watching on our YouTube channel right now, then do me a favor and make sure you have subscribed to the show. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the usual podcast platforms that you get your podcasts, if you haven't already followed the show, make sure you do it now before you forget, because next week we have our next inspiring guest. And the more subscribers we get, the bigger the guests and the more inspirational stories. So I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and we'll see you next week.